Hello, everybody. Welcome into this video. I am Ryan Wormeli alongside Andrew Erickson. We are FantasyPros. We are talking about some overvalued picks to avoid. This is going to be a shorter video for folks on YouTube or for the folks listening on audio on the podcast feed. We're just running through 5 players here that Erickson is avoiding in 2025 drafts. We're going to go 5 to 1. So kind of his, ending with the guy that he is most avoiding and most thinks is overvalued this season. Erickson, we're keeping it quick, so we'll dive right in. Who's your number 5 player?
Yeah, we're going to start at the quarterback position here. Going to go with Baker Mayfield for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So being drafted in that mid-range quarterback 1 area, and it's just chasing a lot of last year's statistics. So career high in rushing numbers across the board, coming off a career 7.2% passing touchdown rate. That was the second highest mark in the NFL. So what do we know that we have to do every year with quarterbacks that have the high passing touchdown efficiency numbers? You usually want to fade those guys the following season. Especially when you look at just projections, Worm, I use projections a lot of the time, not necessarily to identify undervalued and overvalued players, but to kind of just get an idea of where are players that are similarly projected, and then are there players going after them that project similarly? And when you look at Baker Mayfield through some of these median projections, guys that profile very close to him, Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, and those guys go several rounds after Baker Mayfield. So I think there's better value propositions at the quarterback position, either going much at the elite tier with the top 4 or 5 guys, or waiting on rushing quarterbacks like the Drake Mays of the world, going in the late rounds, or even quarterbacks that are more pocket passers that maybe can post some outlier touchdown efficiency numbers like a Jordan Love, for example. Because with Mayfield, Liam Cohen's gone. They have a new OC coming in. I know Baker Mayfield's been productive. Both years he's been in Tampa Bay, he's been a top 10 guy. But if he finishes closer to that 10 range, and you drafted him as a QB 6 or 7, like that's taking a little bit of a loss, and you're missing out on potential breakout candidates at the quarterback position. And in most recently, the thing that's kind of solidified the take for me, whereas Mayfield, I kind of felt like, man, I'm not drafting this guy a ton, but I think that he can probably at least be the QB 7. Tristan Wirfs, if he's going to miss the first month of the season, again, arguably the best offensive tackle in the NFL, starting fast at quarterback is integral to success in redraft formats. And if Baker Mayfield's not firing in the first month of the season, I can't draft that guy. And so if Wirfs is going to miss time to open the year, Baker Mayfield for me is on my do not draft list.
It's super easy, right? Like it's almost, I'm not saying you shouldn't have picked him, but it's almost too obvious of a pick because like everybody's expecting the regression. And just look at the names going at like there is no world where I will be taking the 6th or 7th quarterback off the board. It's just not going to happen. Because look at the guys, he's at the end of tier 2 in our expert consensus rankings. The guys after him in order: Bo Nix, Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Drake May, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud, JJ McCarthy, Matthew Stafford. At cost, I'm not saying I'm ranking Baker behind all those guys. I want everybody I just named, except for maybe Jared Goff, at cost ahead of where Baker Mayfield's going. It's just a very easy pass, and I will let somebody else take the guy who doesn't run that much. He runs a little, but doesn't really run, who's got, passing touchdown regression coming, we expect, and who's going higher than all of those high upside names.
Yeah, and I think too, it's sometimes tough for us to value the loss of a offensive lineman like a Tristan Wirfs, where it's really easy. Let's say Mike Evans is going to miss the first month. It's really easy to then downgrade Baker Mayfield. Oh, he's missing his number 1 wide receiver. We understand we can move him down. I don't think that's always captured as much with offensive linemen, but Wirfs and how important, how integral he is, especially with Baker Mayfield, 3rd fewest pressures last year at the quarterback position. But Baker Mayfield, when he gets pressure, he takes sacks. He had the 5th highest pressure to sack rate last season. So he crumbles sometimes under pressure. And if that's going to stall drives, the new offensive coordinator, I think they're going to go through some growing pains as they try to replace Wirfs. So yeah, there are much better bets you can make a quarterback. The tier you just listed off of those 10 quarterbacks, that's where I want to live in 2025, in that tier of quarterbacks.
It was more like 15 quarterbacks. Which I only correct you to say there's so many options. Yeah. Like I really want to highlight that depth. Yep. All right, player number 4.
Yeah, so I'm going to a rookie running back who I was kind of surprised to put on this list. So it's TreVeyon Henderson for me for the New England Patriots. I know there's a lot of rookie hype for a lot of these rookie running backs, but from a value perspective, I have concerns about Henderson in terms of just what kind of workload he's going to get in the Patriots offense. I've seen it with Josh McDaniels before. Again, I'm a very diehard Patriots fan, been following them for a very long time, as long as I can remember. And McDaniels embraces running back by committees for the most part. Ramondre Stevenson, I know that he struggled over the last couple seasons. He has fumbling issues, but he has familiarity with Josh McDaniels and this offense dating back to their time spent in 2021. So I don't think he's just going to go away because they took Henderson in the 2nd round. I think that we're going to get more of a slow burn where they use Henderson in certain packages. They try to show off how good he can be as a pass catcher out of the backfield, making explosive plays. But he has to get at least a certain amount of volume for you to feel good about starting him week in and week out. And when you're drafting him potentially as a RB2 in your lineup, you have to start him week one. I don't necessarily feel great about that, especially when you look at, I mean, he goes ahead of RJ Harvey. The Broncos' offensive line is significantly better. The Patriots have arguably the worst offensive line in the NFL, and it's better than last year, and it's still really bad. So those are concerns for me about how much volume is he going to see. At Ohio State, he was always better in a tandem alongside another running back because when they overloaded him with touches, he would break down and get injured. So those are my concerns with him. I think there are better value propositions you can get with some of these other rookie running backs. I would probably take Harvey over Henderson straight up. And if you wait a round or two, you can get Caleb Johnson for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I think can be a bell cow in that offense. I don't think Henderson is ever going to be a bell cow, whether that's Stevenson that's going to be working with him or Antonio Gibson or somebody else. I think they're smart enough to know we can't overwork Henderson because that's how he breaks down. And to make a comparison, in 2000 or during Jahmyr Gibbs' rookie year, he was outside the top 30 running backs in points per game. He was a first round pick because they were sharing the backfield with Dave Montgomery. It was a slow start for him. So with Henderson, I think I'm cool with leaving him on the draft board and maybe trying to acquire him later on in the season when I start to see the usage try to trend in his direction as maybe a buy low target. But for right now in drafting, I don't want to take him inside the top 24 necessarily.
We had a bit of a deeper conversation on Henderson on our Polarizing Players episode that we taped earlier this week with Erickson, myself, and D-Rub. So everybody, if you want to kind of dive deeper into TreVeyon Henderson, go check that out. What you should also check out is our draft kit. If you want to know which players the experts are avoiding, the FantasyPros draft kit has full avoid lists, positional tiers, and must-have picks from Andrew Erickson, Derek Brown, Pat Fitzmaurice, and Joe Pisapia. Winning your fantasy league starts before draft day, and the FantasyPros draft kit gives you the knowledge to do it right. Don't walk into draft day guessing. Read up, lock in, win your league. Go to fantasypros.com/kit and draft smarter. Erickson, give me your number 3 player.
Yeah, and last points too on Henderson as well. I like a lot of the receivers that go in his range. So Tetheroy McMillan, Xavier Worthy, Jalen Waddle. So just a combo list of names. Not necessarily looking for running backs as much in that Henderson area. So my third guy, wide receiver DK Metcalf for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I mean, what could go wrong? Drafting a receiver attached to Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith offense, right, Worm? Like this is wheels up, right? Wrong. It is absolutely not wheels up. And I had been kind of thinking about this take. Okay, when's the last time not drafting Arthur Smith's number 1 wide receiver hurt you? The last time it would have probably hurt you in any capacity would be 2020 when AJ Brown was the wide receiver 12 overall, 5th in points per game. Ryan Tannehill threw 33 touchdown passes that year and 7 interceptions. So it was a career year for Ryan Tannehill. So unless we're going to get that from Aaron Rodgers at the age of 40 and beyond, I don't feel the need to draft Metcalf. And I think that he's a little bit overvalued because this offense just isn't about getting the number 1 wide receiver fantasy points. Just look at Arthur Smith's offenses, the 6 years that he's been either the head coach or the OC. Pickens last year on the Steelers, outside the top 40. Drake London, the 2 years prior in Atlanta, wide receiver 39, wide receiver 36. Russell Gage and Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts was the number 1, quote unquote, in 2021. He would have been outside the top 50 when it comes to wide receiver, or when it came to overall scoring. He would have been wide receiver 36 overall. 2020, I talked about AJ Brown. That was the one time we really saw someone pop off. And then the year before that, in 2019, AJ Brown was wide receiver 15, but he was still outside the top 25 in points per game. So Metcalf has been outside the top 15 for 3 straight years. He was wide receiver 33 in points per game last year. This offense is going to, under Rodgers, it's going to be slow. They're going to want to run the football. And I think that the tight ends aren't getting enough love. You look at Arthur Smith's offenses. Again, they just traded for Jonnu Smith. That's kind of been Arthur Smith's guy throughout a couple different stints in his NFL career. Their tight end target shares have been 8th, 1st, 5th, 3rd, 4th, and 8th. So between Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith, I think they're going to eat enough into a passing game that we're not expecting a ton of volume, where I don't think Metcalf is going to be a locked and loaded top 24 wide receiver. And yeah, I think he'll have occasional spike weeks here and there, but I think he's going to be more frustrating. And I think Metcalf too, I feel like his career has just been a little bit overrated. Like the guy is built like Adonis, just this like specimen physically, but he eats bags of candy and he doesn't ever really put it all together in that true wide receiver 1 season. Even in those years with Seattle where he was really effective, every year I feel like we did the same analysis where it's like man, I could draft Metcalf in round 3, or I could just wait and draft Tyler Lockett in round 7, and they're going to score the same amount of points. So for those reasons, I think there are better options than Metcalf. I'd rather have Worthy, bet on that upside if Rashee Rice misses some time. James Conner as a running back in that range. He's kind of one of those running backs I'm circling on the RB2 spectrum. Cortland Sutton, he's the alpha in the Denver Broncos passing game. Zay Flowers, just a couple other names I'd rather have than Metcalf.
Why draft Metcalf in the 4th when you could draft Jonnu Smith in the 13th? That's what I say. We've got 2 names left. We'll go quickly through them. Who do you have number 2?
David Montgomery for the Detroit Lions. And I think this is really more related to I'm expecting Detroit's offense to take a step back without Ben Johnson. And I think that David Montgomery is probably going to suffer the most potentially if this offense goes from even just number 1 overall to a top 10 offense, where he benefits a lot from touchdowns and rushing efficiency and the offense just being able to be effective. We talked about this on the earlier show where Jared Goff, I think that this offensive line is going to take a step back. I'm expecting Jared Goff to take a step back. And last year was kind of under the radar was Dave Montgomery was kind of low-key involved in the passing game a decent amount. So he actually doubled his receiving output from the year prior. He had a lot more games. He had 9 games with at least 3 catches, which is kind of a mind-blowing stat to think about when you think about Dave Montgomery. In 2023, he had 1 game with 3 or more catches. So if the touchdowns are going to come down a little bit, if the receptions are going to come down a little bit, with Jahmyr Gibbs just so poised to take a much bigger role in this offense, you look at the projections, Montgomery's closer to RB23 and RB26. Again, we're all expecting massive things from Gibbs, and I think that it's going to take a hit on David Montgomery. So I can't wrap my head around a guy that I expect to be worse than last year and be confident that, okay, I'm going to lock in David Montgomery as my RB2 with a tougher schedule. I mean, he was RB18 last year, so he's not even really that much discounted than he was last year, despite all of the concerns we might have with the Lions offense. So for me, I think there are better upside picks you can make in that range. Again, I'd rather have Jameson Williams. Like, if I'm going to bet on the Lions offense, I want to bet on the explosive playmakers. Again, Tetral McMillan, I know that we talked about him being undervalued. I would draft him essentially over a lot of these guys we've talked about on this list. Jalen Waddle's my guy, and even Aaron Jones, right? If you're looking for a running back in a timeshare, I mean, Aaron Jones catches passes. He's in a good offensive environment, an upgraded offensive line. So those are a couple of options I would go with instead of Dave Montgomery.
Yeah, I mean, like the offense we think is going to take a step back pretty confidently, and the thing is, there's no discount built into the cost, right? You hit on that already. Like, I don't want to go too far in the other direction and assume that he's going to disappear. But if you're not getting a discount on him, I just don't want to be drafting him where he's going. So I'm in agreement on this one. Quick note for everybody that this month, if you want a chance to win a signed James Cook Bills jersey for free, courtesy of our friends at pristineauction.com, all you have to do is subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel right now. Drop a comment below in any video, and that is it. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can know when new videos are up and to claim your prize. Erickson, take us home with your number 1 player to avoid.
Tyreek Hill for the Miami Dolphins, because what could go wrong on a guy that quit on his team in week 18? I think the vibes around Miami, although there's some optimism about Tyreek Hill, he's running in these sprint meets. He looks really fast. I'm just looking at what happened last year, and it was not good. It was not good for him. Even when games with Tua was healthy last year, Tyreek Hill was wide receiver 18 in terms of his production profile. He ranked 93rd in ESPN's wide receiver model in terms of yards after the catch. So things that he can control. When they get the ball in his hands, he wasn't creating enough yards after the catch like he had done in previous years. He's turning 31 this year. Again, the end is going to come for Tyreek Hill at some point. And I think we saw enough red flags across the board last season with him for me to be like, hey, I'm out. I think that this Dolphins offense, I'd rather invest in it with a player like a Jalen Waddle, who's significantly younger, who's shown that he can be really efficient in the Mike McDaniel offense. So that's kind of where I'd rather push my chips in on Miami, having a little bit of a bounce back. And I think it's interesting that when they polled, ESPN does a poll where they talk to a bunch of executives and they rank these receivers.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill was ranked 3rd. But when you actually read the profile of it, they talk about, oh, because of all the attention he garners, not because of his elite dynamism. It's like, he commands attention from the defense, and essentially it's opening up things for other players to be productive, like we saw last year between Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane. So if it's Waddle that benefits from Smith's departure and not Tyreek Hill, well, I think that this pick is going to end up burning you really badly. So I'm out on Tyreek Hill. Again, he's going too significantly high. Garrett Wilson, I'd rather have. If you want to bet on a 31-year-old, give me George Kittle at tight end, or Devontae Adams, who showed no signs of falling off last year, has Matthew Stafford a massive red zone target share. And I know I was talking to some of the other guys at Fantasy Pros. They think that Tyreek Hill could get traded at some point, and if that happens, I mean, it's going to be a mess. So I'm going to be out on Tyreek Hill this year.
I agree so strongly that it almost worries me that I'm like just too in line with you
Yeah.
that I'm like, this is dangerous that I agree so much. And he might burn me and kind of have like one last rodeo here this season. Cause I will not be drafting. I might have 0 Tyreek Hill this year, like literally 0. I just don't want where he's going at his age, coming off the vibes, like you mentioned. The vibes around the team in general, let alone the vibes with him specifically. And I forget if you mentioned this or not, but like even the Tua of it all, like what happens if Tua gets hurt again, which is clearly a risk at this point every year of his career. So yeah, I want nothing to do with Hill, and if he burns me, congrats to him, but I'm out.
Great.
Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap things up there. Thanks everybody for tuning in for our 5 overvalued picks to avoid from Andrew Erickson. For Erickson, I'm Ryan Wormeli. We'll see you next time.